Good afternoon and welcome to the December 15, 2023 meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. I want to thank Shannon Graham and the entire Graham business and family venture out there for greeting us today. Eric Marcus for being ticket master and setting up. Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Swig for our excellent programs. Jim Gundel for handling the website. I would like to invite Denny Jarvie forward for the invitations.
Well, good afternoon. Well, Holy Creator, you have given us, most of mankind, a strong desire to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to faithfully fulfill our obligations to our neighbors. Help us as Rotarians and humans to do good. Help us as Rotarians and humans to be honest and ethical in our dealings. Help us, Rotarians and humans, to serve others. Help us as Rotarians and humans to faithfully fulfill our obligations to our neighbors, in our community, our nation, and to the world. Amen.
Thank you, Denny. Okay, so we are, again, a secretary's report from Joe Jenkins.
Yeah, we're at 55%. Chris Hadley has a guess.
I have Doug Thompson here. He's our company CFO. He's actually the past president of the New Lebanon.
All right. So I'd like to start with a little bit of business. So at our last meeting, we waived the requirement for a second meeting to present the slate of candidates from our nominating committee. And so now, before voting, I'd like to open the floor up for anyone who would like to nominate a board member or somebody to be a candidate for board membership other than the slate of candidates you've seen here. Do we have any nominations?
Nominate somebody for treasurer. Eric Marcus.
I move the nominations be closed.
Second.
Second by Denny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to accept the candidates from the nominated committee to be elected for those positions. Sandy Brubaker so moves. Second for Joe Jenkins. All in favor? All opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously, and that's our new board that will take their seats. Some of them staying in their seats starting in July. Okay. So we have a stand-in sergeant in arms. He's super excited about it, and I'm sure he will not be irreverent in any way, shape, or form. Colin Kowalski.
I'm like that. For practice of being irreverent. Gosh, it's amazing what you find on the internet. Okay, this is December 15th. It's the 349th day of the year. There are 16 days left. So get your Christmas shopping done quick. Let's see here. On this day in history, in 1791, the University of Pennsylvania Law School was established. In 1791, the Bill of Rights was passed and became part of our Constitution. So we got freedom of speech, press, and religion, among other things from that. Let's see, go back a little in history. In 1593, Holland granted a patent on windmills. And now we've got windmills off the coast. So I don't know what, there's a lesson there. 1792, the first life insurance policy was written in Pennsylvania. 1836, the U.S. Patent Office burned down in Washington, D.C. 1916, on this day, World War I Battle of Verdun. 1938, they broke ground for the Jefferson Memorial in DC. 1939, nylon stockings went on sale. 1942, Massachusetts issued the first license plate tax. 1964, Canada approved the maple leaf as their symbol. In 1967, the Silver Bridge over the Ohio River collapsed, killing 46 people. 1976, Samoa becomes a member of the UN. 1994, Palau, find that on the map, joined the UN. Keep in mind, they and 198 other countries have the same number of votes as we do. So it was tyranny of the majority, I guess. 1995, Playboy went on sale in Ireland after a 36-year ban. But it's gone now. 2005, the F-22 Raptor entered the U.S. Air Force service. 2009, Boeing's 787 Dreamliner made its maiden flight. And we have 200 countries just recently agreeing to the Paris Climate Accords, which, you know, let's say any more about that. Now, I didn't see anybody sneak in late. If you were late, that's fine. And fines will go to anybody who graduated from the University of Pennsylvania or the University of Pennsylvania Law School will be a $2 fine. But they did fire their president this past week, so you give them some credit. If you've ever been to Holland or the Netherlands, if you guys know where Holland is, that's $1. If you're an insurance agent, that's $1. If you've ever had a patent, that's $1. If you ever had Massachusetts license plates, that's $1. That would be too easy. If you know what an F-22 Raptor looks like. Those of you who know it's an airplane, that's one. Okay, I'd say that given the quality of the presidents of the following 3 universities, anybody who went there gets fined $1. Harvard, MIT, and University of Pennsylvania have shown that they don't know how to pick a president. One of them knows how to fire one. And the board of directors of Harvard is just as bad as their president. So clueless presidents, you know, anybody from the school with a clueless president, you should be fined $1. So I need tickets someplace. We got tickets coming up here for the drawing. Oh, there we go. A 338-257.
No, all of those.
All right.
Queen of Hearts. We do it.
Which page? Hot rows.
Hot grows, right.
Okay, we'll put your lines in the top there.
So how about Happy Bucks? Who's got Happy Bucks?
I got nothing.
All right, great.
So, I don't want to preach, but I think everyone here understands that with the economy the way it is, food banks are hurting. Because less and less people can give food to the banks and money, and more people need food. So I've got a book, the Xenia Green County Fish Pantry, which is having a groundbreaking Dick and Tom and I, and commissioner gave them a building, gave them some ARPA funds. They collected a lot more, and we're gonna have a groundbreaking to open a new facility today so that they can serve many more people. And again, many more people are hurting, especially during the holidays. So I'm preaching to the choir here because everyone here gives, and that's so cool about this group. But there are a lot of hunger. There are going to be a lot of people with food insecurity over the holiday. That-
I guess that was happening. I feel guilty for eating. Other happy bucks? Elizabeth?
I have a happy bug for everyone who helped wrap all of the gifts on Tuesday. We had about 16 Rotarians and guests helping us, so I would appreciate everybody coming out and help. Tomorrow is our basket delivery. If you plan on loading up the cars, if you could be there around 8, shortly before 8. And if you plan on delivering, if you can arrive, give them about a 10-minute window, but between 8:10 and 8:30, that would be really helpful. But it's Dock Market in Bellbrook between 8:10 and 8:30. You plan on delivering.
Any other happy bucks?
I'll throw a happy buck out.
Thank you, Shane.
I'm not scared.
So not wearing that sweater, you're not.
I'm not Peter. You all see it. But last week, Beavercreek won 2 hockey games for the weekend. The one they played on Sunday, Isaac scored 2 of the 4 goals. So he's kind of stepping up to be a really good player. So in a short time with hard work, it shows it pays off. So happy for Isaac.
Any other happy bucks?
I want to throw in a happy, sad buck and more of an informational buck. Our football coach at Beavercreek has resigned. It has nothing to do with the rumors you're hearing or seeing on Facebook or any other place. He did it for the right reasons. His wife and his schedules were majorly conflicting. He was spending way too much time away from his young kids. And so he had to make that tough decision. So just to let everybody know that it wasn't it was the best reasons for leaving. He is not going to go coach somewhere else. And he's going to stay on staff at the school. So.
Randy?
I'll do a good segue here too. Both my daughters dance at Celtic Academy of Irish Dance. They got 5th in the nation in their group of 4, what's called 4-hand in a regional competition last month. So they did great. And then they also performed at the Wright State game on Tuesday. So there's a segue.
All right. Nice. Okay. Any announcements? Okay. Mike Swig, come on down.
I'm kind of excited, actually. We did an upgrade to our program. We have the real voice of the Wright State Raiders, not the color commentator guy. Mr. Jim Brown is home and has a really bad back condition and may be out for a month or 2. But Chris stepped up probably a month ago, so our notes have been a little bit out of date. But Chris has been doing the announcing at Wright State for 27 years. And 26 years ago, he came to speak to us, this group, when we were still at Walnut Grove. And he was younger and still had a great voice. But Chris brings a lot of experience, a lot of fun and excitement, and please come and tell us all about the Raiders.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I'm just going to give you a brief background, on myself. Like he said, this is my 27th year. to be able to do Wright State basketball. And, David, I just want to thank you. I remember your dad, he was the one who gave me the opportunity to do this. So I'm really thankful for that. When you see him, tell him, that I'm thinking of him and hope that he and the family are doing well. But, I want to also talk about, I'll get to Jim here in just a minute. I've worked at several radio stations in my career. I started in Ohio in Kenton. I went to Bell Fountain. I went to Chillicothe, and then I moved to North Carolina. I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina during the 80s. I came back to Dayton, went back to Fayetteville, and came back to Dayton again in 1988. For the last 25 years, 13 of the past years, I just retired from WHIO, working in the place with Larry Hansen and Brittany Otto. I just retired a year ago. And before that, I was at Mix 107.7, working mornings for about 13 years. So, the last 25 years was spent here is where I grew up. Beaver Heights, it was Wayne Township at the time, Wayne High School grad. I've attended Wright State and St. Clair. I've got a wife who's just getting ready to retire from an Upper Valley Career Center in Piqua. She also worked in domestic relations court in Montgomery County for many, many years. She's so glad she's out of politics. And she really enjoys her job now. I have 2 kids. All of them have attended Wright State. My son is in Cincinnati area. There's a Wyoming district. He's a mechanical engineer for General Electric, GE Aviation. And my daughter is a registered nurse with Dayton Children's. And like I said, they've all gone through Wright State. I have grandchildren, 20 through 5 years old. Granddaughter is 20. She's transferred from Edison State where she played softball. Yes, Wright State doesn't have a softball team, but she's playing on the club team, but she wants to go to school and be a teacher. She told me the other night, she says, I want to get my PhD, she says, and become a professor. And talking to her and getting her, and I'm proud of her. I'll have to admit this. I'm very proud of her. She has a 4.2 average or whatever it is in school. So she'll do whatever she sets her mind on. Another one wants to be an EMT firefighter. They got 3 boys down in Cincinnati. My son has boys. Please pray for him. They're 11, they're 9, and they're 5. Okay. And trying to, to organize all the things that they do. So I'm very proud of my family. I'm proud of the fact that, my extended family is Wright State. And I also want to talk about Jim Brown a little bit. Jim asked me at the last minute, a few weeks ago, he said, listen, do you mind doing this and contacting Mike if you can come out and speak, for Wright State? And I said, sure, Jim, I'd do anything for you. Anything. He goes, well, thanks. Because he's experiencing some severe back pain. And you guys know Jim, he's been here a few times. He would lie, okay? He could barely move. The last game that he did with me was at Indiana. We were coming up to the concourse from the area where we were broadcasting from, and literally, he was just moving like one step at a time, bent over. I felt so bad for him. But knowing Jim, his sense of humor was still there. There was an older gentleman who came up and was like on the steps going the same way. He wasn't mocking Jim. He was going away. He looked over at Jim and he said, you want to race? True story. Jim just kind of looked over and he goes, oh, I think you can beat me right now. He just started laughing. But the whole way back, he couldn't even get out of the car, to go to the restroom. So we knew there was an issue. And he's a big loss for us because I really turned to him, for his basketball knowledge and his passion for the game. And he started Wright State. I really believe in a foundation that you set. And you can't forget, the history, of your program. And Jim is all about that. And I can sit there and listen to him all the time, repeat stories over and over about Wright State. And he does when we drive in the car into different games all the time. But I'll just soak it up and listen to everything he has to say because he loves the game. He loves to win. And we talked the other day about the situation, with the team right now. I told him, I said, I miss you because I always give you the responsibility to talk to Coach Nagy at the end of the game. All right. And I said, I really miss you right now because it's not anything, it's just coaches, they're upset. I mean, they have to have time to cool down, but he comes out like, 5 minutes after the game. So you have to be really careful about what you ask them. And now I've got this to where I'll ask him, I'll say, give me your assessment of today's game, just to let him talk about it. Then maybe follow up because he continues to look at the box score and he gets really kind of upset. Yeah, which is great, because he wants to win. He knows how much the fan base, wants to win. But right now he's just trying to figure out how to teach his team some defense. You know, I'm sure you've all read about that, and it's just frustrating to him because he's always been a man-to-man defense guy. You know, that's what he's taught. Well, Jim has always talked about zone defense, and he's even brought it up to Coach Nagy on a few occasions. And I talked with Jim the other day, and I said, well, Coach Nagy told me at the end of the game that they're thinking about maybe putting some zone in. He says, I hope so. He says, but I'll believe it when I see it. And that's Jim, you know, and he means it well. He has a lot of respect, you know, for the coaching staff, for all the kids that come through. And I can tell you this, everywhere we go, we have former players. They'll come by, or just somebody associated with the program. They see Jim, they love it. Absolutely love him because they're doing so well in their lives, and they remember how much he did for them. You know, one that comes to mind is Keon Brooks. Keon Brooks is his son is doing pretty well at the University of Washington. He transferred from Kentucky, and who knows, he might get a chance at the NBA. But when we've gone to Fort Wayne, who's now in our league, Keon always comes out and he expresses his thanks, you know, to Coach Brown and to Wright State and what it meant to him and his family. So, you know, those are the great parts of it, what we do. You know, I got to relate a couple of stories about Jim because he did so much into the game. People come up to me and they say, sometimes I can't understand what's going on because Jim just keeps talking. And I said, you know what though? I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all because I just let him go because of his knowledge, because of his passion and the respect that I think he deserves. Because he is Wright State basketball. I really believe that for all these years and how competitive that he has been throughout the years. And he told me, he says, Chris, I'm sure glad I don't coach anymore. And I said, sometimes I say to him, I said, Jim, I couldn't tell because he still gets upset, like with officials. That's the best part of it. You know, you would think the officials wouldn't like him, but there was a time at UIC during the COVID time where 3 officials came over right at the end of halftime, just before the second half was going to begin. And they looked at Jim and they said, Coach, how are we doing tonight? And the reason why they asked that was because with Loudon Love, they said, he is the most difficult player that they've ever had to officiate. Just because he's so big and everybody else would bounce off of him, you know, and he couldn't barely touch anybody and they called a foul on it. They said it was so hard to be able to officiate a game with him in the lineup for Wright State. And Jim just looked at him and he says, good. He says, just don't call a foul on him and call a foul on the other guys. You know, so that's just the kind of sense of humor that he has with these people. They know him by name. They talk to him. They've come to me this year already and asked where he's been. You know, so I miss him. I hope he comes back and do a quick update. He has lower back issues. I talked to him 2 days ago. He says he has spinal stenosis is what they told him. It caused possibly, I'm not a doctor, but possibly from the arthritis that they found also in his lower back. Now, he indicated to me they're going to schedule an epidural shot. Hopefully that gives him some relief, but he did say he is going to look for a surgeon because the pain doctor recommended he have surgery for long-term relief. And he says, I don't have a whole lot of years ahead of me. He said he wants to get it done as soon as possible. So there is a possibility he may not be doing any games this year. We don't know yet. We're leaving that up to him. I hope he comes back. And because I know he wants to, because he had a lot of things to say about the game the other night. He said he kind of missed it sitting there in his living room watching on ESPN Plus, you know, and listening to the game. Just wish he was there. I asked him, Jim, how many times did you say go to zone defense? And he just started laughing out loud. You know, he goes, no. He goes, I'm not the coach of the team. He just says, he just hopes these guys get it together. Because I'll tell you this, I can give you a little background on some of the players. You should be really proud of this group that they have. I'm serious. I see them all the time. I go to practice, at the games, I travel with them. They're wonderful ambassadors, you know, for the university. You know, all the ones they graduate. Tanner Holden. You know, I know a lot of people, maybe not upset, but were concerned when he left along with Grant Vasily last year. Tanner went through a very hard time at Ohio State. All right. You know, and they're not going to talk about this, but this is the stuff I heard. Okay. When he wasn't playing so well, Ohio State fans can be a little rough on their players, you know, even with their football players. So there were some issues that I think really hurt his confidence. All right. And I know once you get to be a certain age, you got to be responsible for your own actions, you know, and he is. but it was not a great experience there. So I'm just thankful that the waiver that they asked for, they worked for, to get him eligible for this year actually worked out because he has a terrific family. All these guys come from terrific families. And I think it hurts them to not win games. I think they try really hard. I go out, watch practice, they're busting their tails. But as Jim told me the other day, he said, Chris, you have to be able to align your philosophy behind the type of players that you have. And every coach what they want to do is put you in a position to win. And I think that's why Coach Nagy, who's very stubborn, he is, but he's honest. That's what I really like about it. People tell you what's on his mind, but he seriously is considering doing those things. He also says he's too hard on his players at times. He thinks he's putting too much pressure on them. So I expect to see some difference in this team when they come out and play Miami on Tuesday. Just from my perspective, they've been in every game this year except one, and that was at Colorado State, which happens to be the 13th ranked team in the country. They've only lost one game so far this year. So the schedule's been difficult. The reason they set the schedule up like this is because the coaching staff and the athletic department had a lot of confidence that this team would do well. And you know what? There's still time to do well because let's face it, you win your conference tournament, you get to go to the NCAA tournament. So that's what their goal is right now. So if anybody has any questions, I'm not going to just ramble on or anything. If you have specific questions, go ahead and fire away.
Have you heard any talk about Wright State in terms of any of the conference realignment or any of the other teams within the conference?
No, I do know, I heard a rumor a few years ago, and it wasn't because of basketball, it was more because of baseball, that the Missouri Valley Conference was definitely interested. But they decided when they lost some teams to move to a larger market, they accepted Loyola, now UIC. But most of the other schools, because they lost a good school in Wichita State for baseball, it was seriously considering, going with Wright State. But there were other issues, and of course, Wright State had their issues with their resources, so the timing wasn't good.
Chris, what's your best memory of Wright State basketball?
Well, there's a couple of them actually. The one, obviously, the Michigan State upset. Yeah, the year that Michigan State went on to win the national championship that year, even though a great guard on their team, the team Cleveland didn't play here. It was a close game, ended up winning it. People rushing the floor. It was a great experience. Yeah, well, the other was the championship in 2007. Brad Brownell's first year with Paul McCarty's pretty much roster. The season which they had, the way they finished the year, on a long winning streak, they were like 13 out of 14 towards the end. But how that game played out, got down 10-2 to an excellent Butler team. But then Deshaun Wood if anybody was there at the game, he put that game on his back. I mean, he was doing everything. He was blocking shots. He was hitting threes. He got the team back in the game. And it hits the big free throws down the stretch, and they ended up winning that game because it hadn't been since 1993 that Wright State had been to the NCAA tournament. So they had a chance to go to the tournament. And I thought that was, was a really, really great experience just to watch them to be able to battle an outstanding Butler team.
Two questions. Are we ever gonna get to play UD? And number two.
Yeah.
How's Brother Bob? Jim's brother.
Oh, you know what? I hear he's doing okay. I don't know the specifics on that, but he had mentioned that, yeah, he's okay. Right now, I can get more specifics and let y'all know, later on, but I don't think there's anything serious, at this point. He would have told me when I spoke with him the other day. But to answer your first question, we get that asked all the time. Even when we go to Milwaukee, because Wisconsin will play Green Bay, they'll play Milwaukee, but it doesn't happen here. I can't answer that question because I'm not at that level that they would play. The coaches have always said that they would play. I think there's a lot of respect, between the programs and the players because they'll play each other in summer ball and that type of thing. But as far as playing the game is concerned, I think it's up to the hierarchy. The Wright State will play, but they want to have a home game. I think UD has mentioned we don't want to lose a home game. because of, they always sell out, I mean, they have fantastic fans. I grew up around here. I followed the UD program when I was younger, I have nothing but respect, for what they do. But as far as playing the game, my first year here was the last year, doing games was the last year that we played. It was at the UD Arena in 1997. And we ended up losing that game. And that's the last time that we've ever played them and nobody said anything about it. Because I think a lot of it comes down to they don't want to lose a home game, even though they're playing Youngstown State, they're playing Oakland, they're playing other teams in our league, but they're paying them to come in to play because they can do that because they, have 13,000 people there, every game and have seat licenses and that sort of thing. I'd like to see, would I like to see the game played? Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be great for the community. I really, really do. I got a thrill when Wright State played there for the first four, on that floor and hearing those fans in the stands, saying, let's go Wright State, like that. The players even noticed that. They told me that when we got on the bus before we had to go out to San Diego to play Arizona after that game. They said it gave them chills down their spine because of all those people screaming for them, in that arena, so they love that. So I like I said, I wish I could answer that question. I'm not the person to ask, they want to play. I mean, they do want to play. The players want to play. I'm sure Wright State wants to play. I can't speak for the people with the University of Dayton. And I must have covered a lot of stuff. I could go into the NIL, I could go into the transfer portal. Okay.
What about NIL and transfer portal?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, that's something that, the coaching staff here, they understand it's part of the game now. But they're still about development. They're still about development. They're about bringing freshmen, redshirt them. We have a couple on this team right now that are really good. A young man by the name of Solomon Callahan. He's a left-handed guard. He's an excellent three-point shooter. He's actually physically and athletically, he can play this year. There's another young man who's from Conants High School here in Dayton, Dejon Anderson. If Anderson rings a bell to anybody who's from my genre, his grandfather, who just passed away within the last 2 years, Dwight Anderson, who played at Kentucky and also for Southern California, one of the best high school players to ever come out of Dayton. And that's his grandson. He helped him along the way, but this kid's got a lot of talent. But he's to be redshirted this year because of all the guards they have on the team this year. You've got Calvin, you had Holden coming back, you have Beavercreek, you have Welledge. So they don't have a lot of depth up front, but they have a lot of depth at guard. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I don't see any indication that these kids are going to leave. Not next year, but I'm glad you brought this up because I don't know if anybody's aware of who they've signed for next year. They got big guys coming in. Jaheim Weber, 6'10", 6'11", about 240 pounds, out of Springfield, Illinois. He right now has an early Loudon Love type body. So whether he plays next year, I don't know. It depends on how well he does this year. But there's another guy that Coach Nagy loves, and you don't usually hear him get that positive about a kid who's going to come as a freshman. His name is Aiden Davis. He's 6'9", about 220, and this is his best attribute according to Coach Nagy. He's mean. He says, we need a guy who's tough. He said he's mean, he's rough, he's tough. He also played against one of the freshmen this year, KK Brown, up in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. He's put back-to-back games together where he scored 20 plus points and also had 10 rebounds. All right, so we're seeing the ability he has up there in high school. Will it transpire here? I think it will, because look, Coach Nagy doesn't get excited about a lot of these guys, but he is about this young man because he's going to help them in the post. He said he's an old-style post player, okay, who's mean, okay, and physical. The other kid, Russ Goddard, is his last name. His first name escapes me right now, but his dad played baseball at Wright State back during the 80s. He's a 6'7" shooting guard who can also play point guard. He's a 40% three-point shooter. He's from Shelby, Ohio, which is up around Mansfield. So if anybody is really into looking at the kids who are there recruited and signed, follow these guys because they're putting up some pretty good numbers right now. So, I know that's in the future, but I still think this team this year still has a lot of quality. It'll be interesting next year because of movement. I've not heard of any players who want to move on. Andrew Wellich can stay even though he's listed as a senior because of the COVID year that they got. Alex Hubricks sat out 1 year from injury he had. He also has a COVID year, so he's got 2 years left. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I think there's a lot of basketball to play, and I think this team has as good a chance as any to win the Verizon League this year.
What's the NIL? Did you cover that?
I wish I was more into that, but they're doing some things at Wright State and trying to be creative about it. With a program, Bob Grant would be an excellent person, to talk to about that, because he's working along with some people who have come up with some creative ideas. I mean, you gotta remember though, this is a mid-major team. It's not like schools that have football. I can say about Youngstown State, they do have football, even though it's not Division I, but they do generate income, and they're turning their roster over on basketball every year. They're bringing in guys who are basically 21, 22 years old, from other schools that they've escaped, and it's worked for them. It has to this point. I think they'll be one of the teams vying for the championship this year, and they've been helped by the transfer portal and the NILs. As far as the other schools, it just depends on what resources you have, and how much support that you have. And Wright State's always supported, their teams, but, I think right now we're like a wild, wild west with the NCAA and, how things are run. And that's well beyond me.
Random question. With all your work in radio and everything else, what's been your most enjoyable job?
This one.
Yeah.
It has been. And also, I must say, the people I worked for at WHIO the last 13 years, I really, really enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy waking up at 1:45 in the morning. I didn't, neither does Larry Hanskin, who's a good friend of mine, okay? Larry doesn't either. What he's accomplished over the years there, I gotta give him a lot of credit for that. And, but the camaraderie that we had, and the professionalism that we had, hearing about the local community like we had, we all got along really well, and they have a lot of talented people there, between him and Brittany Otto, who she was the boss, but she's only like 40, 41 years old, but she is so talented. I told her, I said, you could work in a different market if you wanted to, but she's from Tip City. She wants to stay around here. And if you ever hear Larry talk about her, she's one of those that screams from the stands, because her son is like 6'6". He plays football out at Tip City, Tippecanoe High School. And she's one of those up there yelling at the referees. Okay, she admits it. She admits it, So, yeah, they were good people to work for. And I really enjoyed my time with them, because radio broadcasting and TV broadcasting has gone through a lot of changes. And I was blessed enough to be able to work during the good times, at that time. We're still trying to figure out, I think sports is kind of hanging in there because you've got to have live events. But as far as, people on the air, introducing music or whatever, there could be somebody in Portland right now who's on the air here at Dayton, and you wouldn't know it. Everything is voice tracked, everything's digitized. We saw it coming probably about 10 years ago, so, I'm fortunate that I was able to get through it. Okay.
I know you mentioned somebody was watching the game from home. How would you, stream a game from home?
Okay, with us, we have an ESPN Plus contract with games through the Verizon League and ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus is a subscription service, okay? You sign up for it on the ESPN app. I believe it's like $10.99 a month now. It used to be like $5.99, but it's shot right up. But the great thing about it is you don't have to watch the games live. If you miss it, watch it at your leisure. I came back the next day and watched the game just to see, if what I was talking about was real, just something like that. It does that a lot. Jim Brown watches so many games, and I've been doing that too. I've been watching the other teams, so if I'm going to use it, I'm going to get my $10.99 worth. But you can always dump it at the end of the season, just like any other subscription you have. But that's how you do that. The games on the radio are free. You can stream those free. Our sports information director, who I got to give a plug for, his name is Nick Phillips. He has done a terrific job. He has just lost his assistant, so he's doing everything himself. So he has to watch the women's games. They're playing in Vegas, and then write a story for that. Contact them, get them on video to do something, but he has to do all of this work all on his own. So I got to give him a lot of credit for what he does. Those people are on something.
I was gonna say, do you happen to know that James Graham?
I do know James Graham.
That's his daughter's.
Oh, is that right? Your dad saved us so many times. Oh, yeah. I mean, the way he sets us up, and, to use those boxes. James works for the, your university as a contractor now, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his knowledge of the technology to be able to put on these broadcasts is unequaled.
Yeah.
I mean, what he has been able to do, what you guys see there is not easy. They have a director back there, but everybody else are students. They're operating the cameras and that whatever. And to be honest with you, Horizon League always tells us at the end of the year, they say, you guys probably put on the best production of all the schools that we have. So we have to give a lot of credit to that. Thanks for letting me know that. James is A1. Yes.
Your thoughts on the portal?
The portal?
Portal?
Yeah, the portal. My thoughts on that.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I didn't think it was right. I say when you make a decision to a coach and to a school to come play for them, you should stay with it. And I still believe that, but you have to change. Something I learned in radio is a program director told me, he says, the only constant is change. I know it's cliche, but you know what? If it's part of the landscape, you have to deal with it. But yeah, my part of that is like, you make a commitment to do something, you got to stay with it. Because it's so easy for these guys. Oh, I'm good playing time, or I'm not getting the ball enough. I'm not shooting the ball enough. I'm just going to go somewhere else. Well, I think Tanner Holding can talk to a lot of people about that too. Before you make, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Okay, well, that was clear.
Can you talk about the women's program at all?
Yeah, a few years ago, when they went to the NCAA tournament, won a game, Coach Merriweather, great job. They went on, she's now her alma mater. They were at Memphis for a few years, now they're in Cincinnati. But it helped bring the program back with Coach Bradbury before that. She was an assistant. But Carrie has come in from Cedarville. She had great teams over at Cedarville. Carrie Hoffman is the head coach for the women. And she has basically changed the entire roster. And she's had to use the portal because she needed players. However, now in talking with her at the show the other night, she's still a believer too in bringing in, freshmen. If you have to redshirt, that's fine. She's redshirting, I think, 3 this year. One girl was like player of the year, a small school in Ohio. She's from out out in Trumbull County. Sagaster, yes. Yeah, so she's sitting this year. But that talent she wants to develop, she thinks that this year is a turning point for them. They have gotten better each year. I think that they're on the rise, and I think they're gonna be a contender. But one thing she has to go up against is that Green Bay juggernaut. I mean, they're an outstanding team. They're a top 25 team, usually year in and year out. And but she's from there. She's been an assistant up there before she came down here to Cedarville. And one thing I learned about Carrie is she is extremely competitive, and she was an outstanding player in her own right, when she played. So I think they're in good hands right now.
If you could add it in the sport program, whether it's there and express that, just wanted to be the best one to have.
Well, obviously they would be football if you had money, but I tell you, it was a tough decision they had to make, when they had to drop a few sports. However, I've seen, and this is just from my personal standpoint, my 2 granddaughters play softball. Like I said, one at Edison State, now she's here in the club team. She set 3 school records up there. And my other one's a high school at Wayne. She's a junior. She's been all league for a couple of years. And I think if they could bring softball back, because they have a fine facility there, but to do that, they're going to need a lot of help and resources, because you have to pay a coach, you have to pay assistants, you have to bring scholarship money. That's going to be very, very difficult. But if they could, yeah, my wish list would be something like that, because I've seen a lot of the talent that's in and around here, especially with Beavercreek, and how they've turned out some outstanding players coming out of Beavercreek High School, in softball. So it gives, more young ladies chances to play, because I've gone to these tournaments and I've seen all these girls out there playing and they love it. They play the game the way it should be played, and it's just, I just wish that it could come back, for that reason. All right, Chris. All right, thank you.
Chris, and as is our custom, we will donate a book in Chris's honor to the Greene County Community Library. So this is our last meeting of 2023. When we look ahead to the calendar next year, we start on January 5th with Debbie Matheson at Violence Free Futures. And then you'll see our state of the, I don't remember the exact word, I think it was Pete Landrum, state of the city, then state of the township, then state of the county. And those are great meetings to find out what's going on. Great thing to bring guests to, so please keep that in mind, prospective members. If you are delivering baskets over the weekend, 8:15 to 8:20, right?
Correct.
Unless, yeah, if you're loading 8 o'clock. Okay, and Beth Handworker and Craig Tapp are going to be our greeters on January 5th, so I'm sure they will remember that for sure. Keep an eye on those upcoming programs. Is there anything else for the good of the club?
I'll stay over the wall.
Say again?
Merry
Merry Christmas. All right. Is that finished? All right. Well, let's rise for the pledge, please. Oh, and I don't want to forget to say, good to see you, Chuck. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.